And I believe we are live, Beena. Yep, we are live.
Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Brain. Good morning, Syl. And good morning, everyone who is going to join us live and will watch us record it.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yes,
What are we doing?
yes, I'm aware of it. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
this is something. Yes, okay. It's a secret between two besties. So you guys can just wonder about like what we are sharing, what we are talking about. But anyway, so today's thought, while Syl is going to share on different platforms. I'm going to share my today's thought. I don't know what I'm going to say, but this is how things happen for me. It always happened like that, and I'm
Honest,
so blessed.
honest.
Yes, yes, and I'm so feel so fortunate and so blessed. Though I use this term, but actually, yes, as I'll always say that it's a deliberate choice. So I made a deliberate choice to be
Yeah,
blessed in this way. I made a deliberate choice to be fortunate in this way. And we have to do some sort of action. We have to take some action. Things can be available to us, but not necessarily we access them. And this is the magic of way of impeccability, that you can not only be aware of it, but you can access it. And then there is no other way. Once you really truly understand the way of impeccability and the Moreness project, you will see that you are going to make only deliberate choice in your life. And even if when once like okay, yes, for a um, sometimes you're not aware, even then you will see that how universe will remind you to be deliberate, to take full responsibility. It is not something trivial. It is something so huge, that's so monumental, that sometimes we don't even realize that how huge it is. For me and Syl, okay, I'm including myself again as a privileged one here, but what we discuss, what we share, we know that how big it is, how
yeah.
huge it is, but we don't share the moreness in its fullness, with its fullness about this, because first, of course, the humility, the innate humility. Second, being very cautious of ego nonsense, superiority paradigm. And the third is that this is our day-to-day life. This is how we are. This is who we are. So for us, it's like duh, but we are becoming aware that it's not duh for everyone.
Yes.
Not duh for everyone. We have experienced that because when Syl was attending that the conference, that authors conference, he says that, okay, Beena, I'm going to. He was very excited about that, and that I'm going to meet people. But when he actually met them, he realized that the person who he really want to meet is he himself, because no one as cool as him at that conference. At least this is my understanding.
It sounds egotistical, but you know,
Yes,
well, Beena too. In other words, that people who are sharing and mourners in this way, that was not there, right? Which no fault
yes,
to them, it's no critique or anything. Just that wasn't their focus, or isn't their focus, right? Yeah,
exactly, exactly. So for us, sometimes, okay, I can say that not sometimes. It is almost always. So when Sil share something from Way of Impeccability, from Moreness Project, and of course from him, sometimes the things and the perspectives not included in the Moreness Project and and Way of Impeccability, but he share. When he shares all those things, he shared it in a very casual, very friendly, very yes, ordinary way, because for him it is ordinary, it is like duh, it is usual, it is mundane.
mm,
But in actuality it blows people's mind. Sometimes they
yeah,
get a bit scared, a bit like overwhelmed by that. Overwhelmed, I have experienced almost with everyone. People do get overwhelmed with this, like it's too much, it's too heavy, it's too complicated, it's too sophisticated. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So we need to we need to understand that sometimes we share a lot and people don't get it easily. They cannot. Okay, sometimes not everyone can digest it. It does really overwhelm them. This is something I have experienced that. And still, coming before here, just before that, uh, Sil was sharing with me, and he says, "Beena, what is this?" And I was like, I don't want to go into details, but it was a moment of like, oh, yes, because that was the understanding I was missing. I was not actually deliberately understanding that. So that was the
Yes.
really, oh my God. And then the aha moment for me, the understanding. Because
Yeah.
yes, we need to be, yeah, we are very appreciative, we do celebrate, but still, even the celebration and appreciation after some time gets like a regular thing for you. And then
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to give yourself a bit of shock, of understanding, of awareness, uh, and then realize that, okay, how profound what we are sharing, how valuable it
How
is.
profound it is what we are sharing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, my okay, I know that. The grammar thing.
It's all good. All good. All good. All good. All good.
Yes.
One little lower.
Yes. Okay. I hope so. You are done with all
Oh
with
yeah.
your
Oh
share.
yeah. So
Oh
let
yes.
me ask you something, Bina. Would you say that about what we are sharing, which is Moreness and Moreness culture? Would you say
Yes.
what we are trying to communicate about Moreness culture is, beside the details of what it is, but in the overview, would you say we are trying to communicate that Moreness culture is fantastic? Moreness culture is profound. Moreness and Moreness culture is life changing. Just the concept of Moreness, it's transformative. Yes,
It is.
it's incredibly
Yes, it is.
transformative. It's life changing,
Yes, it is.
self changing. It's fantastic. It's huge. It's a big deal, in other words, right?
Yes,
It's a,
yes.
it's a
And Geeta,
massively big deal.
I can say about myself that okay, I'm kind of getting a bit of immune with this because when you have always have this thing that
Exactly,
always like yes,
exactly.
yeah, I know that. Okay, yes, I know. But I know, as a fact, I know that every single concept is life transformative.
Yeah,
So from the very simple one to the most sophisticated one, they all are in itself, just in as individual, just one concept is life
transformative.
transformative.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
oh yeah. And it's a huge deal, in other words. This
yes,
transformation, this fantasticness, this incredibleness, this value, and the magic of it, the moreness of it. That's why moreness is self-explanatory. But I'm making the point that we aren't communicating necessarily the key isn't what the details are, but the overallness, right? In all of what we're sharing, we are always communicating, hey, this is a big deal. What we are doing is a big deal. What we are doing is profound. It's sublime. It's important. It's spiritual. It's depth. It's moreness, moreness, moreness. It's in the term itself, right? But
so
we
it's not
don't
the audience only.
always. Right, right. But
Yes, it's not.
I'm saying we don't always communicate that directly. That
Yes.
underlying understanding of ours. Yes, and this is something that I do want to communicate with, not directly in words, but overallly in my intent. Yes, a capital C, communicate through everything that I want to do. The undertone, the underlying, that overview mindset. Yes, that communication is that what we are sharing is a big deal. It's transformative. It's
Yes.
profound. It's huge. It's huge, huge, huge. Very big deal. And this ties
Yes.
into something else that I wanted to share. It's a bit of a carryover from yesterday. And this
Mm-hmm.
is that, Bina, you and I are heretics.
Oh, and what this is like
All right? Well,
heretics?
yeah. So Google heretic right quickly, and let's see what it says.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to be using the word in a variation, obviously, but let's see. Let's see what they say. Let's see. What does heretics say
Oh,
in,
oh,
yeah?
a person believing in or practicing religious heresy. Wow.
Well, what is heresy then? That doesn't really tell us what that means, right?
Yes, then heresy. Okay.
Yeah.
Heresy is a noun that means an opinion or belief that goes against the established or official theory or the act of holding
There we go.
such an opinion or belief.
There we go. Read
Yes.
that first up to theory. Read that again up to theory.
Heresy is a noun that means an opinion or belief that goes against the established or official theory.
All right. There we go. Right. So an opinion. Read it again, please.
An opinion or belief that goes against the established or official theory.
Okay, so an opinion or a belief or a perspective that goes against the established
Established, official.
right? Established or official theory, right? Now,
Yes.
now, typically heresy is associated with religion, but
Yes.
that's not all there is to it, right? When we understand this, it's not all there is to it. Yes. Um, heresy isn't just with religion. I mean, you can have a heretical view in science, in psychology, in anything, right? Doesn't matter, language, whatever, right? Culture. So we are cultural heretics. Yes, yeah. Does that make sense, Beena?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Because so much of what we do goes against the prevailing theory and understanding. Yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's a
Yes.
very big deal. That's a very,
It's a
very,
very big
very
deal.
big deal.
We were not aware, and in our kind of our innocence, we were just taking it casually and just enjoying this and celebrating it. But we were not understanding the fullness of this huge act. That
Yeah,
what you are doing is a big, huge deal because you are
yeah,
going against something. You are, of course, by saying against, I mean that okay, the conventional way, the superiority paradigm.
yeah.
I never ever call myself a warrior, a spirit warrior, a spiritual warrior. I never acquired any self-conception like this.
Right.
But but in actuality, this is what we are doing. This is what exactly what we are doing. It's a huge act. It's a big responsibility. And what we are doing is nothing mundane or casual.
Yeah, yeah. No, nothing at all. Nothing at all. Exactly. Yeah. What we're doing is a very, very, very big deal. In other words, yeah.
Okay, so you are
But
busy with something?
well, I'm trying to get TikTok going, and it's just like
Okay.
add camera. It's just being
Mhm.
difficult. It's just being difficult. Uh, trying to go
Anyway, I
live, but it
every
won't go live.
every
So this.
every individual.
Oh, go
No, no,
ahead.
I
Go ahead.
was I was just filling in. Please continue.
All right. So I'm saying that this point of being a heretic is very important, because to go against cultural tradition. Well, for instance, when I was a teenager, going against the whole booze religion, right, the drinking culture, that was a heresy. See, it was a heresy right there, right? But it's not
Yes,
necessarily seen as that specifically, but it's going against the prevailing thought, the prevailing belief. Yes, and
exactly,
that's a
exactly.
very, very, very big deal. It's a
It's a
it's a
daring act.
huge
It's a
deal.
daring act.
Exactly, exactly, and not just daring, but also requires, well, it requires strategy, because we
Oh
we
yes.
sort of assume that to go against the thing we have to rail against it, we have to fight against it, we have to be a revolutionary. No, you don't have to be anything of that nature, right? You can go against things strategically. And this was for me the appropriateness of having a social side and a private side. My social side was able uh, uh, to merge and flow and be appropriate, at the same time also do my own thing, because I had my private side that gave it advice in how to do this sensibly, right? So it was about appropriateness. That was the point of it all. So I was never seen as being anti alcohol, because I'm not. Many people enjoy alcohol and use it responsibly and don't abuse it. And even if they do abuse it, that's their call. It's not my call. So I have no negative opinion about people abusing alcohol or anything. Food can be anything, right? People abuse all sorts of stuff. That's their choice. I respect your choice to make stupid choices. If we don't make stupid choices, we don't have freedom. And we don't know what those stupid choices are sometimes. You kind of have to test the limits a little bit. And okay, you do something stupid, like you get drunk and you say, well, no, this is not for me, right? But you don't know until you try it. Right? You don't have to always try things to know them. Some things you can know just from observation. You don't always have to test it yourself. I don't have to jump off a building to know that going splat at the bottom is not going to be a good idea. I can use inference and extrapolation and all sorts of other ways to get to this, right? But still, sometimes you do want to experience it for yourself. So making stupid choices is not necessarily a stupid thing in itself, right? There is a logic, a sensibility to making stupid choices. So I respect this. I respect people's choices. And they do this for many other reasons. They think they need to, they see it as their only choice, etc. So at the root, they are making what they think is a sensible choice. How do I not respect that? Yeah? Very, very key. When we understand this about choice, it's a big deal. But also we understand that going against the prevailing theory, the prevailing understanding, the prevailing culture, the prevailing tradition, this is a massive, massive, massive big deal, and requires a lot of internal fortitude. Why? Because we have to shift our brain to say, I, me, little old me who knows very little, I am going against what everybody says is sensible. But it's not sensible to me. Well, like getting drunk and drinking till you pass out. This just made no sense to me. I have to trust my own sensibility, and I can't be just like everybody else who just buys into it and just goes along with it because it's what they should do and supposed to do. So it's a way of claiming yourself, which is difficult, especially if you have innate humility. Yeah? It's a very difficult thing to stand up and say, I know better than everybody else, essentially. But sometimes we need to do this. Sometimes we need to stand alone and say, sorry, whole world, in this you are wrong. This is an important skill. It's not a skill of arrogance. It's not a skill of ego. It is a skill of claiming your own independence and sensibility. And, of course, when you're doing that, impeccability is key, because you can only do that if you've thought it through to the end. To the
Exactly.
end. You've thought it through to the end. And you've perspective shifted to multiple, multiple, multiple perspectives. In other words, you've been thorough, you've been conscientious, you've been scrupulous, you've been disciplined, you've been diligent in thinking this thing through. And the only conclusion you can come to after thinking it completely and thoroughly through to the end and perspective shifting to all the possible perspectives, the only conclusion you can come to is, nope, sorry, whole world, in this you are wrong. And you have to then stand up for yourself. If you don't, you end up living a wrongness that you know in your heart, in your soul, in your depth, in your thorough research, you know it's not right. Now, it may turn out later to change, but in the meantime, you have to go with your truth. If you don't, you sell out yourself and you corrupt your soul. Yeah? It's not about arrogance, it's about honesty. It's about honesty. You have to have that deep, deep honesty to claim your own sobriety and sensibility. The universe tests you in this way. Are you going to just go along with this foolish nonsense? Because why? Because you don't want to say, oh, no, this is wrong? It's a test. It's an incredible, massive test from the universe. And people just subscribe. They just go along with supposed to and should. And they do the most ridiculous and preposterous and absurd things as a result. Like with the drinking, yes? Where in that culture, as I was saying yesterday, when I was in high school, right? The boys would just drink to pass out. This was the logic, right? And it wasn't just a few. This was pretty much all the boys, right? That was what they did, like on the weekends, wherever they got the opportunity. I was like, really, seriously, this is your epitome of fun and pleasure and joy to make yourself insensate. I could save you the money. I'll come with a mallet and give you a knock here behind the ear and knock you out, and you'll be insensate too. You're still going to wake up with a headache, because your hangover will give you a headache too. At least you won't be nauseous and sick and all that. So, save yourself a little bit of extra stress there and some money. But, just my point is they were doing things which were ridiculous on the face of it. Why? Because they weren't able to be a heretic. Many, 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 many things. I see people getting into marriages because they have to. They don't want to, but they think they have to. Or they have children because they think they have to. Now, a lot of people argue with me and say, oh, but this is the most important thing. For you. But don't assume what's right for you is so for everybody. Yes? This is absolutely crucial. So this point of being a heretic, it's about claiming your personal truth. You don't have to go out and be a crusader which is trying to force everybody to your point of view. Absolutely not. But in your own personal, private world, you can do so. And of course, you can be strategic about it. I never had any problems not drinking. Yeah, I used to hang out, I still do. Or yeah, in Sedona with people who are taking drugs. Right? I mean, it is part of the culture. People taking the whole range of them, right? It's just sort of accepted. I mean, it's like if you don't like, I was the only person that I knew that did not do so. That didn't mean I couldn't hang out and chat with the people, and I would talk to them about it too, because I'm quite fascinated by it. But I don't have a critique of it. It's not for me. That's all. So you can find ways to claim your own truth. It's just not something I'm into. It's not keen. I'm not keen on it. It's not my thing. It's not attunement hasn't led me there. Whatever, right? There are many ways to deal with things. We don't have to be combative. In other words, just because I think something's right doesn't automatically mean I think you doing it is wrong. No, I have a right mindset. It's right for me and it's right for you. Or I trust that it's right for you. I'm trusting that you're being sensible. You might not be, or you might be. I don't know. But I trust that you are, right? I give you that benefit of the doubt. This is very, very, very powerful. Very, very powerful, right? So to be a heretic, in other words, it is about really being able to claim your personal truth and to be able to go against the whole world if necessary, or your local culture, your family, whatever, right? But it's about truth and independence, and the universe tests us. The universe tests us to make sure we have this. Otherwise, you don't. It's like you're not going to get to raise your awareness more and develop and enhance your awareness, right? But you need that test, because if you don't have it, if you fail the test, you have to learn. You have to learn. You have to learn until you get there, right? Very, very, very big deal. All right. Before Joseph has left 2 long comments, and I'll come to your comments in a moment. Any comments before we go there, Beena?
No, please continue, because I was
Okay.
enjoying that, and it
Right.
is a huge understanding.
Right.
Because again, it is going to be a life transformative concept for
Yes.
me.
Yes. Yes. Now, 2 things. We started where we were talking about communicating what we are really communicating, which is the fantasticness, the incredibleness, the potency, the magic, the life-changingness, the sublimeness, the profoundness of Moreness and Moreness-Culture. That's our underlying intent to communicate. Now, we're not always pushing this, but we do kind of need to. Why? Because Moreness and Moreness-Culture is a heresy.
Yes.
Oh, I don't want to be. It's a heresy against superiority paradigm, because it is completely different. Impeccability is a heresy. You say, whoa. Impeccability is heresy. Yes, Joseph, you understand impeccability. You're familiar with the concept. Yes, you read Don Juan, right? Uh, to say it's a heresy, well, think about it. Think about it in our daily life and look at Carlos, how unimpeccable he is by default. Not because he's necessarily a bad person. He isn't a bad person, but he does a lot of nonsense, silliness, foolishness. Why? Because he buys into the superiority paradigm. Impeccability is not part of the superiority paradigm, right? And there's a negativity against it. Why? Because much of the superiority paradigm wants to legitimize crappiness, because the people who are pushing the superiority paradigm, they are not nice people. And we get our superiority paradigm, it's feudal culture. It's a culture that was really entrenched and solidified and fine-tuned by the feudal lords, yes, to justify their abuse of the peasants, free slavery, right? So it's a fantastic, fantastic mechanism of subversion and manipulation and abuse. But as a result, you have to justify crappiness because you're being crappy. So anyway, I want to go into the details of this very profound thing to understand. But the long and the short of it is, people want to have excuses for their crappiness. So impeccability, of course, has to be an impossibility, a heresy. Yeah, that's why people are so anti-perfection. The whole idea, when I was a boy, right? You know, mind that their understandings of it were just foolish and idiotic. No, perfection would be boring. It's an oxymoron. I mean, come on, seriously? If it was boring, it wouldn't be perfect, right? So this is very, very key point here. Very, very key point to understand that impeccability is a heresy. Moreness-Culture is a heresy. Yeah, but of course, when you look at it the other way, you say, wow, but there's also a moreness to it. It's a profoundness. It's a heresy against nonsense. Yes, Martin Luther. Yes, Martin Luther, right, of Lutheran thing, right? He was a profound heretic, but he's not recorded in history as a heretic. But that's what he did, yes? He criticized the church very profoundly, right? And he nailed up on the church door 49, I forget what they called now, 49 edicts, I think, right? All of these 49 edicts were criticisms of the church. The most profound one was the selling of indulgences. That's what it was called. The church would sell an indulgence. What is an indulgence? You pay money to say that whatever your sins and crimes were, they're forgiven and you'll get into heaven. In other words, you could buy your way into heaven. He said, this is ridiculous. You can't pay money to get into heaven. You have to actually be good, right? And it was just a corruption in the church. And the church at that time was massively corrupt in many, many ways. And interestingly enough, in the modern era, the church has actually acknowledged the corruption that was back then. It took centuries for this to be acknowledged. But my point is, Martin Luther, as a heretic, changed things profoundly. The whole Protestant movement came about as a result of this, right? We had the dominance of the Roman Catholic Church, then you got the Protestant subdivisions because of a heresy, right? But if you talk to the average Protestant and they say, oh, you're a heretic, they're like, I'm no heretic, I'm not against God or anything, because the understanding of a heresy is like, you heretics get burned at the stake. Yeah? Well, of course, many of them did, and the points they had were very, very valid. Galileo, Copernicus, considered heretics for a long time because they said that you know the sun doesn't revolve around the earth, other way around, because they dared to say that we are not the most important thing in the universe. They went against the superior paradigm. Isn't that incredible? Right? I mean, it was just like Copernicus says, and I don't have anything to do with your ego and saying we aren't the most important. I'm just telling you a scientific fact. But that's how it was interpreted, right? So he went against the prevailing paradigm, the prevailing theory, the prevailing logic. Most of our advances in our awareness in life, in science, technology, all at some point heretical. Yes? It's very profound. I mean, just the idea, for instance, that Columbus discovered America. People came to here. The Vikings came here before. The Buddhists came here way even before the Vikings. But this is such a heresy against this idea, prevailing theory, right? that it's taking a long time for this stuff to catch on. It's astonishing how simply changing the prevailing theory meets with so much resistance, because a lot of people have invested in this, right? And they built this theory, and a lot of reasons why people get stuck in stuff. But if we aren't heretics, we don't advance. Yeah? So we have to learn to be heretics. All right, so before I go to Joseph's comments, any comments from you, Beena?
No, no, I'm just enjoying this, really.
But also, I had this on my mind when I started. I want to give a shout out to Joseph. Yes, in this, that
Yes.
I admire people who persevere. I
Oh,
admire
yeah.
people who make an effort. I admire people who step out of their comfort zone. I admire people who explore, who adventure, and who are, in their own ways, even though it might not appear so, heretical. Yes. In other words,
Oh,
when you
yes.
challenge, when you ask, when you're looking to understand, when you're looking to learn, but also you acknowledge that there is to learn. You're acknowledging there is a moreness here, right? But you don't want to just grab onto it wholesale and become a follower. And that's why, to me, it's so important to focus on understanding. It's core to Moreness and Moreness-Culture. Understanding, not agree or disagree. And we get stuck in this, because if we get stuck in this agree, disagree mindset, then if I agree, oh, I'm your follower. No, I don't want any followers. I want understanding. If you understand, it's your choice. Always your choice. But you cannot truly exercise your choice unless you understand. And we have to check that we understand, because we may believe we understand, and believing we understand and actually understanding, not the same. So we have to feed back what we understand, to say, let me see if I got this right. Let me see if I understand. In other words, do a repeat back. That's what it's called in our Dictionary of Power, a repeat back. Very, very key. Very, very key. All right, so let's see. Joseph wrote a wonderful long comment, and Joseph makes effort, right? He thinks about the things, yes, and he shares. All of this, giving you a shout out there, Joseph. All right, Joseph says, from yesterday's discussion, you asked me about your views on benefits. I think your overall views on the issue is accurate. I'd only add one part. I'd start with what I would call projected benefit. It can come from our overall culture, or it can come from a specific subset of our culture. Like your example, what a subset. It can also come from more obviously negative places. For example, con men. Yes, exactly. Snake oil salesman, propaganda, salesman of a certain kind of general, etc. Salesman of a certain kind in general, etc. Then I would agree that there is the accepted benefit. What people think the benefit should be, and then I agree that what is important is the actual inherent benefit. Yeah. So I'd love that. I love your comment. I would just say, personally, I would recommend you take the word agree out of it. Share an understanding, which is what you were doing, right? You were sharing an understanding. If you remove agree, it changes the intent of the sharing, right? You're sharing understanding, and you're checking your understanding, which is what you're doing, yes. So, this benefit, I was saying value rather than benefit, which is the same thing, right? But I was talking about believed value and assumed value and perceived value, and comparing this to actual value. Yes, con men, for instance, like you were saying, propaganda, con men, salesmen, all of this kind of stuff. They sell you a believed value, a perceived value, an assumed value. But when you actually get down to it, what am I actually getting? Politicians, right? This is their stock in trade. They sell you promises. Do they ever follow up on the promises? No. In my world that I would create, at least in the Biela series, in the agglomeration there where they have regular politics, they made a law to say that if you engage in anything political, in any way that potentially puts you in a political sphere, whether you're running for office or not, the moment you start doing that, first of all, you go under oath, right? Like you're in a court of law, which means from that moment on, whatever you say needs to be the truth. Otherwise, you can be in contempt, right? Contempt of the system. Secondly, if you make any promise, you are absolutely obliged to follow up and follow through on that promise. So if you're in office and you make a promise, right? You have to follow up on this. And if you don't, you can be held to account. And it's very serious if you don't follow through on your promise. Now, it doesn't mean that you necessarily will succeed, but you've got to make a sincere and genuine effort. Like you may promise to do, but you need to have everybody else agree with you and you couldn't get, okay. But if you've made a sincere effort, if you don't make the sincere effort or don't succeed in your promise when you could have, you go to jail. That's it. No fines, nothing. You go to jail. End of story. Right? Very serious. In other words, it forces politics to be honest. So, very heretical idea. But again, exactly what you're saying, right? When we look at this, people selling you ideas, selling you propaganda. And our culture sells us many, many similar ideas. Not just through propaganda deliberately, but subtly, inadvertently, in an assumed way. Take for instance, our culture and the idea of success. Nobody tells you specifically, well, sometimes they do, but they don't say you have to be wealthy, you have to be successful. Some people say this, but it's implied, right? So when you grow up, well, that's kind of what I have to do. Nobody may have said it to you directly, but you just kind of know that this is what you're supposed to do because it's inherent in culture. Culture is pushing this. Our particular superiority paradigm culture. You have to be better. You have to be superior, right? All of these things are implied. They're being sold to you. Now be careful what you believe as the value, right? Is this an actual value? For the most part, status and fame, they have many, many, many negative consequences to them. They're only positive to the ego. But if you really think about it, you get people bothering you, you get paparazzi chasing you, you have no privacy. Like, seriously? This is a positive? No. Right? All right. So very cool. Joseph goes on to say, unfortunately, even when you think things through to the nth degree, you have to leave room for outside views. Yes, always, always. You can go as far as you do, but that's where, right, thinking it through to the end will get you to those outside views, right? So that's what we mean by thinking it through to the end. Plus, we're combining perspective shifting to multiple perspectives. When you put those two together, then of course looking at outside views is it just automatically happens. Not just outside views, but universal view as well. So Moreness and Moreness culture is really a totality perspective, right? Automatically bring in outside views, views of others, heretical views, yes? Unusual views, different views, unthought of views, creative views, imaginative views, all of those multiple perspectives, right? We want to have this broad. You don't have to accept them, but no matter how much we take things to the ends of our thinking, there are always limits and gaps to our thinking. Precisely, this is why we live in attunement, because we know we are limited. We absolutely know we are limited. But one of the sayings of Moreness-Culture, very profound saying, says, I am nothing compared to the universe. However, I am something compared to nothing. We repeat that. One of the sayings
Yes.
of Moreness-Culture, way of impeccability saying, is, I am nothing compared to the universe. However, I am something compared to nothing. We have to have both. We have to have both. Yes? We are something
Yes.
compared to nothing. We are nothing compared to the universe. And this is where we understanding this means that I trust my own sensibility, yeah, to take care of me in most things. However, when my sensibility is limited, this is when I pay attention to attunement, to anomalies. And I get that assistance from outside of me. Yeah? Very, very, very important. Paying attention to outside, and not just other people, but outside, like from the universe, in other words. This is absolutely critical to way of impeccability. It's inherent to the entire point of attunement, right? And I have that profound story that I wrote called The Gift of Intent, and that really points this out in a very profound way, right? So taking it through to the ends of our thinking, there are always limits and gaps. Of course, humility and this understanding is inherent in way of impeccability. So yes, very important, Joseph. It's like the idea of peer review in academics, only fair to address points others make. To be too rigid in one's thinking can be a sign of emotional immaturity. Absolutely. And this is what Moreness is, precisely what Moreness is, a lack of rigidity in thinking. Moreness culture, lack of rigidity. Moreness is open. Moreness is creative, right? Multiple perspective shifting, multiple, not either or, mentality of opposites, etc. All of this limited, comparative mindsets, all limited, right? So this broadness of thinking, it's absolutely intrinsic to Moreness and Moreness culture. It's what makes Moreness and Moreness culture Moreness and Moreness culture. That broadness, this totality, the complete inclusiveness, right? Yeah, yeah. Well, your words don't upset me at all. I love your words. I'm never upset by your words. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, absolutely. Joseph, I don't feel like anything you said is heretical unless you're misunderstanding what I'm doing. Right? And sometimes you do misunderstand what I'm saying, right? So if your comment is, your comments before are saying that in some way my thinking is limited and that I think my thinking is complete when it's limited, I never, ever, ever, ever think my thinking is complete. Never. Never, right? So if that was your understanding, then your heresy is misapplied. Yes, to that point though, about being cautious about assuming our thinking is complete. This applies to the world in general, yes. But part of Moreness is to never ever assume that, right? One of the other sayings of Moreness culture and of way of impeccability is, everything is only as good as it lasts. This means that I may have thought it through to the end and I can't go any further, and it works and it's complete and it's fantastic, but I never ever lock that in. I'm always open to change because this is working for me, and then, oh, it's no longer working. Something new has come along, something completely out of left field, something completely anomalous, different, and I jumped into a whole other paradigm. Oh, wow, okay. What was perfect before no longer works. Newtonian physics compared to Einsteinian physics. Newtonian physics is all wrong. Yet we use Newtonian physics every single day. When you're driving along in your car and you look at the speedometer, right? That calculation is using Newtonian physics. Well, many other examples, right? But Einsteinian physics, because Einsteinian physics is in a quantum level of scale and difference, right? So when we're talking about speed in a human level, right, and we go 1,000 miles an hour, that's like, oh man, that's ridiculously fast, right? It's like super fast, yeah? But compared to the speed of light, you're not even crawling, you're barely moving, see? So it's a matter of scale, right? So something that's appropriate on the small, tiny, fractional scale, which is Newtonian physics, does not work on the large scale of universal physics, yeah? And the same applies with thinking. So we want to develop this overview perspective, and that's why overview perspective is so huge in everything we say, yeah? All right. So no, I mean, when you say, I hope my words don't upset you too much, there's a double. First of all, they don't upset me at all, and therefore they can't upset me too much, right? Because when you say too much, there's an assumption that they'll upset me. I'm never upset by anything you say, Joseph. Never. But that doesn't mean that if you're coming at something and that there's a misunderstanding, I'm going to make a lot of effort to correct that misunderstanding or to share my understanding. Right? Particularly when I say correct, not that I'm saying I know what's going on, but to correct your understanding of what I shared, because I know what I mean to share and what I intend to share. So I'm not saying the point itself is an absolute point. I'm making a point of communication, right? So I will really put a lot of effort into communicating as best I can what I was sharing, because what I share is a different paradigm, and when it's interpreted and heard through the lens of the superiority paradigm, you don't hear it accurately, right? It's literally if you're sitting inside a room that's got like see-through, like an office, but instead of being clear glass, it's red tinted glass. You're going to look at everything and everything's going to appear red to you. Yeah? And whatever comes in is some shade of red. You're not able to perceive the nuance of the colors because every color becomes red tinged. Yeah? And that's what the superiority paradigm, any paradigm, that's what it does. It filters what we hear, what we perceive, what we understand. And we put it all into that context. And we have assumptions, particularly in the superiority paradigm. We assume people are trying to tell us stuff. We assume they're trying to be important. We assume that they are trying to be special. They're trying to be famous. They're trying to be important. None of that applies to Moreness-Culture. It doesn't apply to me. It doesn't apply to Beena. We don't have this intent. This is why I was communicating earlier. What is our intent? Our intent is to share that what we are connecting to, what we are about, is something that's valuable, that's fantastic, that has moreness to it, that has depth to it, that has magic to it, right? We are sharing something that we find incredibly valuable. We find it so. And because we find it so, and we're sharing this, maybe it's so for you too, right? We don't say it would be necessarily, it could be, and likely it will be if you really get into it, but we don't insist, right? So we do different things, right? Yeah. All right. So truth be told, though, I get a lot of value from the podcasts, and I don't want to be seen as a problem. But no, you're not a problem. You're a joy. You're a gift, Joseph. You're a gift. That's why I was giving you the
Not at
shout
all,
out, right?
Joseph. Not at all.
Ah,
Not
you're
at all.
magical. You're
No.
magical. You're awesome,
I
man.
always
Right.
say that, okay, you adds a lot
Yeah.
because of course you're sharing something what you
Correct.
think,
Correct.
and then
Correct.
get more and
Correct.
more things about
Correct.
that, and
Correct.
then he
Correct.
elucidates. Yes.
Right. So what I would absolutely recommend with sharing viewpoints is to, whenever you share, just add those two magic words, for me. Right? Superiority paradigm, this is like, no, 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 no. You've got to be assertive. You've got to be definitive. Because if you say for me, then you wishy-washy and no. Right? So that's whole superiority paradigm of communicating importance. That's just what it's all about. Whether your things you say are actually so or not doesn't matter. But I'm not saying you do this, Joseph, but I'm saying this is something we pick up inadvertently, and it affects our communication. So we don't say for me because that just goes against the whole logic, this inadvertent understanding that we pick up, right? We pick up a lot of things inadvertently, and they cause a lot of problem, like this point of being definitive, being authoritative, being assertive, right? It's very important. But when you say for me, you automatically are being humble. And you're saying, as I see it in my experience, from my viewpoint, my opinion. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, no matter how crazy it is. If you say, well, for me, it's all about, the whole world or everything was made by aliens and okay, this is your viewpoint. That's fine. Whether I think it's crazy or not is irrelevant. You believe this. You feel this is so. And that has validity, right? So everyone's choice has validity. Doesn't matter if the choice is accurate or not. The choice itself has validity, like I was saying earlier before. But when we say for me, it changes the nature of the discussion. When we say something is so, now you're getting into an objective discussion of, is this an actual fact or not? And that's sometimes very, very, very difficult to ascertain and to determine with absolute definitiveness. Some things cannot be proven, yeah, and they don't need to be. But when you say for me, it changes. All right, let's take it in religious context. Yes, God is real. God is the only God, right? This you hear in religious discussions, right? How do you prove this? You can't. And now, because you've said it as an absolute fact, you challenge anybody who has any kind of a rational scientific mind to say, but how can you say this definitively? You have no proof of it. I don't have proof that it's not so either, but you don't have proof that it is so. You see, and you get into this proving. But if the person who has a religious belief says, for me, I believe God is the only God, and God is real and true and exact. Okay, you believe this. Well, I can't argue with that. Fine. End of discussion, right? So I recommend this to all people who have opinions and beliefs which deeply affect their life. Just say for me and nobody can argue with you. Very simple, right? And it changes the nature of the discussion. Now, whether I personally believe in whatever God you believe in, all right, let's shift it from God to the fairy queen, right? And somebody says, for me, the fairy queen is what determines everything. The fairy queen has created this world. The fairy queen determines everything that happens, blah, 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 right? For me, now you can get into a discussion of, well, why do you think the fairy queen? Why specifically that? And we can have a wonderful discussion whether you agree with me or think I'm crazy or not. It doesn't matter. You can get into why I think so, not whether or not it is true. See, two different discussions. Why I believe it's true is a different discussion as to whether or not it actually is, in an objective sense, true. Yeah? Two different discussions. And we can have a wonderful discussion about why I think it to be true. I'm making my case, right? And I say, okay, this and that and this and that. Okay, so, well, all right, yeah, all right. But still, you made this assumption that the root of it, which is like, all right. See, and you can get into real wonderful discussions. And you can learn a lot. And you can find value. We can get value out of beliefs, whether they are true or not. This is inherent to way of impeccability. And it is so often that this comes up, right, Beena? That we get value
Yes.
from things which we know to be true. Sorry, we know not to be true. We still get value out of it. This is a most profound mindset. Most profound mindset, yeah? So this is what I really recommend, Joseph. Share your opinions rather than sharing facts, yeah? Your opinion may or may not be a fact, but when it's shared as an opinion, in other words, to share for me, it changes the nature of the discussion. When it's shared as a fact, it's now a discussion of whether or not it is true or not. It really doesn't matter in the end. It's the effect of the belief that matters, not whether or not it's true, right? For instance, let's take something that's, that I know not to be true, but I'm going to treat it as true in order to get value out of it. I've got a really horrible, nasty boss, but I'm going to treat it as a truth that they actually, deep down inside, they're a nice person, they just don't know how to be nice. And this changes my attitude, my mindset, my way of relating, and I treat the boss as a nice person. Now, in actuality, let's just assume they actually aren't a nice person. But me treating them as if they are secretly, inherently, deep down a nice person makes them really think, wow, I'm being treated in a very different way here. Maybe if I change a bit, I could get treated this way more. And over time, it has an effect,
Exactly.
and the person actually becomes nicer, right? I've
Yes.
practiced this all my life, and I've seen this happen many, many times, right? So I started off with something that I knew wasn't true, but treated it as true because there was value in it, and I got massive value. Now, sometimes the people change, and sometimes they don't. Nonetheless, the behavior of them towards me, they're not a nice person, but they like being treated as if they were nice. Or as if they were genuine, as if they were real, and they know they're big phonies and liars, but they like this idea. I get the benefit of them behaving nicely towards me. I've done this since I was a teenager, right? And it's very, very potent. So again, truth is something that in the end it doesn't matter. It's the value that matters, right? Very, very important to separate truth and value or benefit, yeah? Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Yeah. So I'm glad you get a lot out of it, Joseph. This is very important. We learn, and sometimes we learn despite ourselves because we have habits. We have habits of thinking. We have habits of belief. We have habits of assumption. We have habits of the default perspective, right, which is the paradigm. And those things can work against us and we don't even realize it. So it's difficult sometimes to go against ourselves. This is why this hereticness is so, so, so important. And why I'm recommending this for me. The moment we shift out of that, it opens us up to having perspectives, and we can have multiple. We can say, well, for me, right now, I believe this. 2 minutes later, I might say, well, you know what, I'm going to also believe this. Personally, people ask, well, what do you believe in? I say, I believe in everything. Especially they ask, like in a religious context sometimes, right? I say, well, I believe in all the religions. Why not? If we think about it, right? In this marvelous, incredible, wonderful, stupendous universe we live in, pretty much we've come to understand that everything is possible. Yeah, especially if you go really deep into science and into physics, right? More and more, the most incredible things they are sharing. It's like, wow, oh, actually what we thought was impossible before is possible now. But so I have to believe in some way, maybe in some alternative reality, things are different. Well, I know in dreams, for instance, a lot of things that aren't possible in this reality are possible in dreams. Yeah. So somewhere in the universe, in some way or another, everything is possible. So how can I not believe in everything? Yeah, it's all a matter of context. Yes, it's not possible in this particular context, but if you shift the context, in other words, change the paradigms of the reality, like in dreams, well, now suddenly it's possible. See, so I just believe in everything. That's why I'm never have this whole insistence and hang up about truth. Truth is a variable, like everything else. Yeah. And I don't mean it in the bullshit way that bullshitters do. No, I mean it from a value point. Every single thing that I share is always about actual practical value. Am I getting actual practical value out of it, or do I believe I'm getting value? Like the belief in value of my drunken friends. They believed they were getting value. Were they actually getting value? Well, I'll leave that up to them to answer. From my perspective, I could not see them getting any value, right? And even from their own talk, afterwards, they made it sound so cool, all the puking and getting sick and the hangovers, all this. Like, you're trying to sell me that you were ill and sick and all this, and this is supposed to be cool. No, well, you just want to acknowledge that you're a total idiot and you did something stupid for no good reason, and you can't, and now you have to make a good reason for it. No, sorry, right? So I'm a bit more of a realist than that, right? So we have to be a realist, and to be a realist also means, for the most part, often, that if we are true realists, we are going to be heretics. Yeah? That's the key point for us today. It's all about heresy. Yes.
Yes.
So again,
Yes.
we didn't get to doing the reading. I'll change the title again. Like yesterday, it was about believed value and actual value. Very key, the actual value, right? So Joseph, if you shift out of this agree and disagree mindset and say, all right, let's not say what Beena and that. I'm going to listen to Beena and Syl, not with this mindset of agreeing or disagreeing, but what do they share that is actually valuable? All right, so let's take this whole point about being a heretic, yes? As you say, yes, you are somewhat of a heretic, and I love that, right? So does your heresy does our heresy, is there a value to it? Yes. If you think about it, well, I might not agree with this, or half the time, we don't really even understand what people are saying, so how can I agree? What is it that's valuable to me? And this is inherent to way of impeccability, the philosophy of takeaway. Yes? We don't care whether we agree or disagree. I'm listening and saying, what do I take away from this that I can use that's valuable to me? Oh, the whole idea of heresy is to not just accept everything, but to actually think about it, and think about it with a bit of a challenging it mindset, right? And take it just, never mind other people, just with yourself. Let me challenge my own ideas. Let me challenge my own beliefs. Let me challenge my own practices, my own habits, my own routines, my own mindsets, my own attitudes. Let me challenge this, what I don't even realize I'm doing. Let me challenge my unawareness. Yeah? Let me be a heretic to myself. I personally, every now and then, I have done this through the course of my life, and it's the most valuable thing to do. I take everything I know and I throw it all out. I say, everything I know is wrong. Panic. Right? And the thing is, you got to throw it all out. All right. And let me do a practical example. Yeah. Take your wardrobe, your clothing. Yes. And you say,
Yes.
wardrobe's a bit full. Now, this is a bit of a first world problem. Right? When I grew up, this was absolutely not a thing. My wardrobe was completely not full. I had very little clothing and all kind of a mess. I was a ragamuffin, really. It was all. The first time I had new clothing was when I started working as a waiter at 15, and I had to go actually buy shirts because I didn't have that I would be appropriate to work in the restaurant. Right? Anyway, so. But in this first world, like now, I have lots of clothing. But all right, but for most people, understand this example. When you look at your wardrobe and say, I got too much, the wardrobe's overfilling, I got to donate some of the things, and I got to send it to Goodwill or charity or whatever, right? Or sell it in a yard, so whatever. Now, though, I challenge you, the next time you're in that perspective, don't go through your wardrobe and say, well, okay, this one and this one, I'm going to throw this out. Don't pick from the wardrobe. Take your entire wardrobe and literally move it to your front yard, right? Throw it all out. Now you've thrown it all away. Now go to all the things you've thrown out and say, what do I want to put back? Actually, if you really want to do this properly, donate your entire wardrobe to Goodwill and then go to Goodwill and buy back the things from your own wardrobe. My point is, when you actually have to make an effort to put those things back, the true value is going to really be apparent, right? Because you have to make an effort. And you're going to find that the things that you truly put back are way, way, way fewer than the things that you left behind when you were just taking some and throwing it out. It's a change of perspective, a change of mindset, a change of perceived value, yeah? So do the same thing with your attitudes, your mindsets, your beliefs, your assumptions. Yeah? Throw them all out and now put them back. It really changes the perception of what's actually valuable. When it's all in there, we assume it's all valuable and we just take out the obvious things that aren't, right? And we're left with a lot of stuff. And when you do this with your physical, literal wardrobe or with your possessions, right, you end up with a lot of stuff that, well, if you throw it all out and put it back, the majority you don't really need or don't even really want. Yeah, it's just effort to throw it out. Right? But when we do this with our assumptions, our beliefs, our attitudes, our mindsets, changes things very, very, very profoundly. Very big deal, right? Look at actual value, in other words, right? Not perceived value, not believed value, but actual value. And test it. Like when you say, well, if I'm just going to my wardrobe and say, well, I'm going to take this and throw this out. It's not a really good test. When I have to pay for my own things to put it back in my wardrobe, now I really know I actually really, really want this stuff, right? And it's important to me, yeah? So very, very helpful, very, very helpful. So bottom line is, Joseph, I would really recommend, and just as an experiment, try it, to say, let me unhook from agree and disagree, and let me share comments on what I find valuable. Just try that as an experiment and see. It's transformative. It's transformative. Then you realize it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. It's what you find valuable. And I do truly, sincerely, utterly sincerely believe that Beena and I share much that is valuable, is absolutely in the absolute, right? This is my personal belief. I truly, truly believe that what we are sharing is like being a heretic. Yes, I mean, I personally, truly believe this is very valuable. Yeah, I mean, I can make a good case for it, and maybe I can prove it. I don't need to. I don't need to. I leave it to you to try it out, because this is inherent in Way of Impeccability. You have to test it for yourself. I don't want to make a definitive case, because then you end up believing me, and this absolutely goes against Way of Impeccability. There's a deeper logic. You have to figure it out for yourself, which means you have to test it. You have to try it out. You have to say, okay, that sounds interesting. Let me give it the benefit of the doubt. This is capital R receptivity. And let me go test it. Let me try it out. Let me try out this heretical idea of being a heretic as being valuable. It's a very heretical idea to be a heretic as a positive, yeah? But try it out and test it a little bit and see if you can look at your own life, your own, maybe your family culture, your family beliefs, or community or your culture, your greater culture of your community, right? Or even national, international, doesn't matter. What is there that maybe you personally think, no man, this doesn't make any sense to me, right? And can you claim that? Can you own it? Can you own your own truths? Yeah. And when we own our truths as me, and we add to it impeccability. I'm not saying it because I'm just believing it out of nowhere and it's like, well, I believe it, and no, I believe it because I've thought it through to the end. There's a justification, a substantiation to it. That doesn't mean I think it is an absolute truth. No, it's a truth for me based on thoroughness, diligence, scrupulousness, conscientiousness, impeccability. Yes, my integrity. Right? So I can claim it because I've done the fullness of it. Yeah? Very, very, very important. So the heresy is not something that you can do lightly, like Martin Luther King. He didn't just say, oh, well, this is what I feel about it. He didn't just put up his superstitions to counter these other superstitions. No, they were thought through, they were reasoned, and they made sense. And of course, they changed things profoundly because he'd made that effort to think it through quite deeply. Yes. Now, by the way, it doesn't mean that I'm saying this is important about Martin Luther, that he was an important heretic. It doesn't mean I agree with everything that he also said is deeper philosophy. Not necessarily. In this instance, yeah, so just be cautious here, that don't assume that I'm saying Martin Luther is the greatest thing ever. He did something great. Yes, his heresy in that instance was great. For the rest, that's a different issue, right? May or may not be. Right? I'm just being cautious here, right? And again, I'm not necessarily being super negative about the Catholic Church in the overall. There were great periods where it was completely horrible, right? I mean, it was very corrupt, yeah, like this, selling things for money. Right? We have to look at the overall, understand things in context. Any comments, Beena, before we go?
I just want to say that today was for me an eye opener again. And Joseph, what you are sharing, what you are just participating here is a big,
Yeah.
huge deal because
Oh,
as you can
yeah.
also see,
It's
not
wonderful.
everyone can do this. People
Nope,
do find
nope,
value. We see
nope.
a lot of
Exactly.
views on our YouTube videos regularly, like sometimes
Yeah,
40, sometimes 15, and then okay, it is going like this. But after 42, no one, no one actually dared to make a comment. It's a
exactly.
big, huge deal. People do watch that, and we are aware of it. We
Yeah,
can see the statistics.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but this. It needs a lot of courage. It needs a lot of peace of being also
Exactly,
to
exactly, exactly,
say to come and
exactly.
share something.
Right, right,
And
right,
this is
right,
very
right,
profound and very valuable for us. We really
right,
truly appreciate.
right, right. So it's to shift what we believe to be valuable. Superiority paradigm says agree and disagree is what's valuable. No, it's not. Understanding is what's valuable. Sharing what is valuable to you, this is even more valuable. Right? So if you share your takeaways, in other words, right, not just a repeat back to check your understanding, yes, that's fantastically valuable. This is the inherent mechanism of way of impeccability, right? Every
Yes.
session that you come on as a participant, you sharing your repeat backs and your takeaways, and then how you did it, and you get into this mindset of repeat back and takeaway. But just here in the comments, share your takeaway of what you took away that was valuable to you. I would love to hear this. This would be the most profound thing, because agree, disagree. Okay, so you agree. So what? You disagree. So what? Why matters. Yeah? That may matter. But if you really get into why, instead of shifting to why you disagree, shift to what your understanding is. Now the conversation shifts, right? Now it's an appreciation and a sharing, which you can be doing it as a checking to see, okay, this is how I understood it, and this is the value I took out of it. You're doing two things. You're checking to make sure that you did understand appropriately. You are sharing your own personal understanding that's coming from your experience, which is a separate thing, right? Understanding of what was communicated, your personal understanding of the issue. And then third, the value that you took away. That's the real magic, the value that we take away. Sometimes we get value even when we don't understand. Doesn't matter. The value is what matters. Yeah? That's the very key thing. So Very cool, very cool, very cool. I love that you get value, and I want to hear about the value that you get, because this is what's important, the value that we get. This is what's important. So we love you, Joseph, and never upset with what you say. It's a
Yes. Oh,
treasure.
yes.
It's a treasure. Just because sometimes I will go at great lengths, it's because I care, Joseph. My my extended responses to what you say is not because I'm upset. That's a superiority paradigm assumption. No, it's because it matters. It's important. You matter to me. You're important to me. Your thoughts matter. They're important. Right? This is just how I relate to anybody who's going to make the effort to share. Right? I take it very, very, very seriously. Right? And and this part of the moreness that I could spend weeks and months on just one point. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not invested in the usual way, right? So we can't infer my motivations from my responses. That's just how moreness is. You can keep on giving. You can keep on giving. Yeah? There's a value to it. It's the value of understanding, the value of enhanced awareness. The more I express, all right, let's say there's some confusion on a point and I'm looking to clarify it. I benefit because I'm practicing communication, I'm practicing expression. The more I do this, the more clear I become about things. I see things that I didn't see before. I extend my own understanding. Even if I'm completely, fully know my topic, I'm practicing my communication. I may understand it, I may even be able to communicate it well, but it doesn't mean I'm able to communicate it to you specifically. Yeah, that's a whole different challenge. Right? So there's always value. This is the whole, if we get into, later we're going to get to this, to Nobelia and the whole new nobility culture and all of their stuff. This is why they do the things that they do, right? There's a moreness to it. There's a moreness to it. It's hard to communicate it all in a short space of time, right? Takes a lot. Takes a lot. All right, wonderful, wonderful. Beena, anything to close with?
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and thank you, Syl, for sharing such in-depth moreness with us
Yeah,
today.
I love it. I love it.
Today's session
Yeah, yeah.
is special for many reasons for me,
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
because I am really intending to shift my perspective of myself and the
Yes.
moreness and the
Yes.
value we are
Yes.
acquiring from this and the
Yes.
value we are sharing from this. Because
Yes.
again, I
Yes.
say that, okay, because every single time, every single day, when you say this word, like countless time, moreness, and sharing, you
Yeah.
get kind of immune with this. And then you said, okay, yes, we take
Yeah.
it for granted. And also because we were in a bubble, we both were discussing and sharing in a very limited
Yes.
circle. We were not open, we were not interacting openly, freely
Yeah.
with other people. So then it was like, okay, yes, we know that it's valuable. But when
Yeah.
you go out in a bigger pond, supposed to be a bigger pond, and out of your cozy little fish tank, when you go in a bigger pond,
Yeah.
and then you see that, okay, my assumption was that, okay, yes, we are going to get a lot of value. We did get a lot of value, but
Oh,
in
yeah.
a different
Oh,
way.
yeah.
But it
Oh,
was in
yeah.
a different
Oh, yeah.
way. It
Oh, yeah.
was in a form of understanding that how much we have already
Yeah.
acquired,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
more we already have,
Right.
and how
Right.
profound and how valuable and how huge it is. So that
Yes.
is the understanding, and I'm going to keep it.
Yes.
And I'm going to somehow going to just include it including it in my everyday's reminder of, like, okay, paying attention to your algorithm. I'm going to say that, Veena, pay attention to your forefront of your consciousness all the time. What you have to keep it here.
Exactly.
So this is something, yes,
Exactly.
I'm going to add
And
this.
what we are communicating is value, right?
Exactly.
Perspective has value. Is an additional perspective on whatever the issue is. Is it a truth? No. Is it valuable? Absolutely. See, we have to unhook from this idea that we can only get value from truth. No, perspective is not truth, and yet perspective, especially multiple perspectives, each individual perspective is not truth, but you put them all together and you start to get a sense of the truth. You get understanding. You still may not have truth, but when you have that understanding, which through multiple perspectives. This is incredibly valuable. So when we understand that truth in itself is not the thing, perspective, understanding, this is where we get value from, right? And when we focus on value, it changes. And what we are communicating every day, what's in the forefront of our awareness, we're going to make this as a conscious, deliberate thing, is that moreness has value for you. Moreness has value for you. Yes? Moreness is valuable. Moreness in itself has incredible value, has moreness to it. The word moreness means extra, bonus, additional value and benefit. Yeah? That's what moreness
Yes.
means. All right, brilliant. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers, Joseph. Again, we love you, mate. We
Yes,
really do. We
of course.
really,
Yes.
really
Yes.
love and appreciate your comments. We would love everybody who is participating to share the way you do. Yes, and to shift it again. Just try this for me, please. Just as an experiment, Joseph. When you start to make a long comment, just add in the beginning of it there, say for me, and see how it changes your sharing. Right. The moment you say for me, blah, 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 it changes automatically. You say things in a different way. And we unhook from this limitation of agree and disagree. It's massively limiting, right? When we say for me, we open up the doors to moreness, right? The doors to moreness. And I want to say hello and hi to all the TikTokers. There was a zillion of you joined today. When it said some of your names, it says say hi behind it and others not. I don't know why some are not the other. But anyway, I said hi to everybody, but I love that you're all here. And we want to hear from you guys. So comment, share, and share the live as well. Share it on your timelines, right? It makes a big difference. But comments, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. We love to hear from everybody. Very big deal. And I want to say to the Instagrammers also, Faithful Endurance Fitness and Churchies, Ariana, and Paul Lawrence Curtis. I love it. I love it that you guys joined us. Again, share what you think. Share what's valuable to you. Share what's useful to you, right? Share your opinion. Hey, for me, blah, 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 right? I love this. For me, this, that, and the other. Share it in that way. It's transformative, right? Or you could say, in my experience, from my perspective, but for me, it just takes care of it all. Transformative, transformative, transformative. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please do pay attention to your
Yeah.
online and offline algorithm because ultimately they are the same. Wherever you are
Yes.
going to focus and emphasize, universe is
Very
just going to
critical.
help
Very critical.
to
Very
maximize
critical.
that. Please,
Yeah.
please pay attention to
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
want to maximize in your life.
Yeah.
I assume it's value and moreness. So whenever you find
Yeah.
value and moreness,
Yeah.
please do pay attention and make a deliberate choice to click like and hit the notification bell so you can be like really making it clear for the universe and for the online algorithm that this is what you want, or maybe okay, more something like that. So please do make a deliberate choice. This is the first step towards deliberate living. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you guys on Sunday.
Yes. And I'll see you on Zoom again soon. I want to do the last one that we would.
Okay. Okay.
So.